Peoples. Where my destination is going? So sorry. Wait, hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. This thing is telling me to do something, and this has never happened before. Okay, so now it's going. Everyone, what's good? Big CED, Industry Cosign, back again. My friends are better than yours. Today I have, well, every time I start the show, I always say a special guest, but anybody that appears on the show is special because I invited them. So I got to start with the special guest. But
why are you making that distinction now?
I do it every time. Every time I do,
special.
Listen, every time I do this, there's a different revelation, and people are like, one, we don't care, or two, so. But I just go off the top of my head, like I'm in a battle. Let me stop. Anyway, Big CED, Industry Cosign. My friends are better than yours. I'm going to give her the proper name that I see on her bio, the Reverend Nicole. I see Nikki, but I'm going to say Nicole, just to be formal, because everyone that watches this knows that once I get rid of the formal part, it's just going to be silliness for my part or just me being stupid. But we have Reverend Nicole Duncan Smith. Sorry. I don't even know how we met or even if we ever met. Let me stop. But we've known each other like through channels for so many years before actually meeting in person. And that's how it is in this industry, especially if you're.
I actually remember when I met you.
Okay.
I had just moved to New York in '97.
Damn.
And someone invited me to like a backyard kind of like kickback. It was like an industry type of thing. And I met you there, Big CED. And I remember because it was in Queens, I think. And I was sharing my husband, he was my boyfriend then. His name is Greg Smith. He was a DJ for Mad Lion back in the day. And he used to work for Front Page. Front Page was
Front Page, yeah.
Paris One's company.
Yeah.
And you knew my husband. And I was like, oh, so I always remember you from back then. And I remember, this is the thing that stuck out. You don't know who he is? He's the guy from the MC Lyte music video, Paper Thin. And so I always remembered you from way back then. And of course, over the years, we haven't connected. But then, recently, I guess over the last 10 years or so, we were able to lock in. But that's when I first met you.
That's so funny. And I tell people all the time that I could cure cancer. I could become president of the United States. But people could be like, nah, that's the guy in the MC Lyte video. So it's like, that's going to stay with me for the rest of my life, regardless of what I do. And I mean, I accept it. I'm not, running from it, but it's just funny when you said that. And people do say that, yeah, I remember you because you were, I was like, oh gosh, don't say it. And then they say it. But anyway, I'm glad to have you here. You've done what you're doing, great things. And as I tell people, and if this is your first time tuning in, I've been a journalist for I don't know how many years, but I've been writing for so many years, and I'm sick of speaking to celebrities or people that I really don't know or even care about, which is 90% of them. But when I decided to do this platform, when I first started it, when I came up with My Friends Are Better Than Yours, I'm like, I'd rather focus on people I actually know. And if you don't know, you get to know them by the time the episode is over. And hopefully, you either do your own research or you follow them as well. And I'm always, and with some of the people that I have featured on the show have been people I literally haven't spoken to in years. And it's good to catch up on camera, so to speak. So, and I definitely want to do something different than what everyone else is doing. And I started off by doing the celebrity thing, but I'm like, that's what I'm trying to get away from. Even though I have celebrities as friends, but I'm like, nah, I don't want people to come in. I want people to come in genuinely interested in who I speak to, as opposed to having a name that's there because, I'm like, no, if you're going to come see me, first of all, you better be coming to see me and then find out why I'm selecting the person that I'm talking to for the day, or for the hour, for the minute, or whatever it is. But anyway, I'm going to allow Miss Nikki to give a little brief bio. And as some of you who's tuned in before, you know that it can go anywhere. And when I say anywhere, I don't mean anything bad, but anywhere as far as the direction, because most of the people I have on the program are people that have done so many things for so many years that we can literally talk about, we can talk about something in 96 and stick on it for an hour and still have a great conversation. But I try to move around because I want people to know, why I pick the person that's on the side of me to talk to. But after saying all that, hi Nikki, how are you?
Hey, hi. I'm a journalist. I like to consider myself a part of the second wave of hip hop journalists. And in that I started having pieces published in '96.
Yes.
So I see myself after the Rob Marriott's, the Dream Hamptons, that school, this second school. And I was on the West Coast when I started writing professionally with rap pages under Sheena Lester, which back in the day, rap pages and the Source were like the West Coast and the East Coast. Like they were really the only two magazines out there, print magazines that were really, it was a lot though. There was a lot. Let me not say that. There was a lot of hip hop magazines at a certain time. It was Blaze and Blast, and it was Right On kind of had a thing. It was a lot of things. So
Word up.
So I was in my first job out of college, I guess. Worked with Rock the Vote. So I helped create the Rap the Vote campaign.
Yeah.
Actually, few people know this. LL Cool J actually came up with the concept for a specifically urban arm of Rock the Vote. This was under Donna Frisbee, who eventually became the executive director of Rock the Vote. And his was like hip hop for voter. It was a really long name. And so we just was like, no, it was like me, James Staten. It was Donna Frisbee. And we was like, let's just say Rap the Vote. And then eventually it became what everybody started to get into later on. And as a journalist, I was able to I was a writer. So I was able to write the scripts and get the artists. So we had like the Fugees. We had, my favorite one was with Monica, where she was like 15. And the end was like, I'm 15 and I can't vote. Why can't you? And I took that between that and rap pages, kept working until I came to New York to work for Lauryn Hill with the Miseducation album around that time. And from Lauryn, I worked for Trackmasters. From Trackmasters, I worked for Russell Simmons as a special assistant to the CEO. And I was called to the ministry. And so there's a huge gap where I'm going to seminary and I'm learning this and I'm developing a doctrine where it looks at pop culture, specifically hip hop, and how do we communicate God through that. When I entered back into the industry, started working with The Source, Atlanta Black Star, All Hip Hop, a whole bunch of different places. And now I'm on the board of the Hip Hop Museum, the advisory board for the Hip Hop Museum, and doing a lot of great work there. So that's a really fast-tracked overview of who I am. I'm a lover of hip hop. That's it. I'm a lover of hip hop.
It's funny because I'm going to start right away because I wasn't going to bring the ministry thing up until a little later, but since you mentioned it now, I remember a time, and I'm pretty sure you do, where hip hop and anything was like not good. Specifically religion, because even religion back then had issues with secular music in general. And then when the hip hop came around, it's like we're definitely like R&B. We might tiptoe, but hip hop, no, hip hop, no, this and that. Knowing that, and then getting into the industry, the ministry. How are you able? And of course, the mindset has changed over the years. Of course, definitely over the years, where now you have legit hip hop artists in gospel, Christian, however they label it in religious music. So of course, everything's changed. But while you're doing this, it wasn't as acceptable as it is now, even if it was 4 years ago. How was it that your love for hip hop and then your love for the ministry, how were you able to, I guess, marry it for your sake?
So I was born September the 18th, 1973. So hip hop is literally all I know. A month and a week after hip hop's recognized birthday, right? I was also raised in the church. In fact, fun fact, Will Smith and I went to the same church growing up.
Wow, okay.
So there's the understanding. I always had this understanding that my social location always informed what I believed about God.
Yeah.
And if God loved me, God loved all of me. Now, I didn't always have the language for that. You know, there was a whole, in the 90s, there were people, when I did my dissertation, my thesis in college at Spelman, I went to Spelman College, I did my thesis on hip hop. The reviewer said hip hop is not going to last. It's going to be over in 5 years. So I can't, this is like 94, 95. They didn't believe in hip hop. And so always having this fierce defense of the culture, an apology almost, where I'm constantly defending the cultural relevance of hip hop. It helped me when I entered into seminary. Once I got into seminary and started to look at liberation theology, I was able to say, aha, there it is. There's an articulation of faith that looks at culture and Blackness and Black culture as a viable means to communicate to others about the grace of God. And once I embraced it and started moving forward, and of course, there were other people doing this type of work. You had Michael Eric Dyson doing this type of work, the Reverend Michael Eric Dyson, and so many other preachers who came out of the same culture, and by the 2000s had the freedom to kind of talk about, don't push me till I'm close to the edge, like use hip hop lyrics in their sermons. It's interesting. I remember being 16 and hearing Reverend Freddie Haynes, who's Friendship West in Dallas, at the Urban League conference, and he started rapping in the middle. And this is like 91, and he was an older guy. But I said, God is listening to me, and God does care about me. Once I was able to hear the call for me to go to seminary, for me to accept the call to be a minister, it was very easy for me to bring my whole self to the cross, I say, and encourage other people. And then looking at other theological perspectives, I was like, and also really reading the Bible. Everything the rappers and the people that I look at in hip hop, you can find something similar inside the Bible, like from murder to, but also great things. So we often look at hip hop as this really negative space, but Chuck D says it's the CNN of the streets. And so the church is supposed to be the CNN of the street also. The church is supposed to represent the needs of the everyday person, for the Black community in particular. And so it just was a natural kind of like fit for me. My ministry, I have my own ministry, is called the Sunday School Dropout. And we specifically look at 3 things. People who the church don't want. They might not say it, but their attitudes and the way they move shows you that they're not welcomed in traditional church spaces. It's also for people who feel like God is bigger than religion. And if God is bigger than religion, then God can also be articulated through signs and symbols that I think hip hop has a lot of signs and symbols that if the world paid attention to, we would kind of circumvent a lot of disasters, social disasters. And then it's also for people who've experienced church hurt. Church hurt is a very real thing, because so often you had to fit into a box to be into this idea of what the church is. And so many people have pushed past that. I loved when Run DMC came out with Down with the King. Game changer. The cross movement, game changer. Salt on Stomp, game changer. And so those steps helped me to be able to validate my ministry. And now, because academia is in love with hip hop now, they're always asking me from my point of view. It really hasn't changed. God loves me and I love hip hop. And so if A equals B and B equals C, then there's a connection there. Now, God doesn't like riffraff, but God understands it. And so how do I use the challenge is, how do I use hip hop as a culture to communicate the wholeness of God and hope for people? So that's a lot.
Yeah, that is. And I'm glad you stuck with it, because I know some people who felt they had to separate themselves because of the divide, either within the church itself or within themselves. And I'm like, can't you do both? But that's
that's indoctrination. That's how you've been socialized, that you have to wear a dress to church. You have been socialized that don't be wearing no red lipstick. You've been socialized There's certain things that they've told you. Wear your best clothes on, so I understand that mindset. Give your very best and show up your very best. But then who defines what the very best is, right? So, and hip hop is so funny. When I worked for Russell Simmons, Russell used to always be like, my church girl, come here. Come here, church girl. So I didn't just become a minister. I've always kind of ministered in a way. People who know me is like, oh, she's a woman of faith. Like, no one was shocked when I got ordained. They was like, well, you've been preaching. You've been, on that vibe. Even at Trackmasters, when I was in the A&R department at Trackmasters, and at the time we had this artist, his name was 50 Cent. And there would be things going on in 50's life. And I'd be like, all right, we're going to shut this down. Let's go in the office and pray. And he would come and pray with me. And so that's always been who I was in the industry. Someone that would be like, all right, let's talk about the gifts of God and how you can be blessed, or how you're stressed out, give it over, or, that. And also working in a space of optimum righteousness, like where you're good and integrity. You know what I'm saying? We live in an industry where sometimes it's celebrated to be funky to people. And so my biggest ministry is just being nice.
Yeah. That's hard for me to do. Let me stop. But I mean, and I came up in the church as well. I don't go often anymore, but I came up in the church, and I always appreciated like when DMX did his prayers, and when people like actually started like utilizing the strength of prayer or even the word of God within hip hop. So I definitely appreciate, and I never thought it should be separated, because there are, Lord forgive me for saying this, there's probably more devils in the church than there are in hip hop. I'm sorry.
I mean, the church is a microcosm of the world, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So everything you see outside, you see inside. The other thing is that religion in hip hop has been around for years. The 5%ers, the Muslim, Islam. Like, I remember growing up and feeling like, I love Rakim. I love, Big Daddy Kane, or Poor Righteous Teachers, or Brand New. Everybody was a 5%er. That didn't resonate with me, right? Until I later did deeper study and started to realize that theologically there are things that they're saying that's actually in the Bible that we don't like to, because you don't worship the way that I worship. I dismiss it. But I always was like, yeah, why can't we have a movement where people are activated and engaged? And then again, it goes back to growing up in the same church that Will Smith did. Like, I remember if you went to Bible study, if you went to, not Bible study, Sunday school every week for like a month, you got free tickets to go see Will Smith in Bismarcky. And so I always was like, oh, there is a way very early on how you can use that to motivate people to get in their word. I will even credit my introduction to hip hop as an industry through the church, because I went to WDAS, shout out to Deanna Williams, and on a Sunday, and they told me to come back. They asked me what song I wanted to hear, and I wanted to hear "Ooh This Love Is So" by I'll Be Sure. And they was like, I'm a kid though, and they're like, no, this is a gospel song. You got, maybe I Believe the Children of the Future, but not "Ooh This Love Is So" by I'll Be Sure. He's coming next week. You can come back. When I came back, I met Troy Dudley, Andre Harrell, and Sugar Dice, and I started interning first with WIA, because I was sure it was not the Warner Brothers. Then I kept that into college. Then, I did the stuff at LaFace and like all these internships. And then but my first introduction to industry people working that way was through the church. So.
And I want to say shout to Sugar Dice, because I saw him at the Hip Hop Museum Gala. I say gala, people say it's gala. I don't know.
I've always said gala. Now I'm hearing gala. Like, it's interchangeable. It's like vase and vase,
Yeah, I had a friend that's like, no, it's gala. I'm like, I went to the place. How about that? No. But and of course I used to actually hang out with Albert Brown in the night and day days. I was definitely around the Uptown crew. I was definitely around the Uptown crew. But let's get back to you. So you also have the ultimate. Oh, you know what? Actually, before I even get there, a little bird just told me that somebody who is an advisory board member on for the Hip Hop Museum is actually going to be doing more things with Hip Hop Museum. And would you like to talk about that? Because I don't like repeating things that wasn't told to me directly. So maybe you can reveal the news.
Yes, I am the special assistant to the CEO, Rocky Bucano, who
Shout out to
Zulu
Rocky.
Nation, shout out to Rocky, Zulu Nation leader back in the day, is DJ back in the day, used to be the president of Rowdy Records, and now is the visionary, the founder, and CEO for the Hip Hop Museum, 17, 18 years in the making. And so I'm helping him out with some things, but also creating projects. My role is to have these special projects that help the museum get up and running for next year, because we're gonna open next year with a bang. And so there's so many small pieces and things that can't drop. So as much support that is available, he needs to really get us over the threshold. So I'm excited about working with the Hip Hop Museum. I've been on the advisory board for 4.5 years, so this is kind of just like a natural transition. And I'm so excited. Like, my dream from back in the day. Again, we're coming from a space where people used to be like, hip hop's not going to last.
Yep,
right?
Yep.
And so I remember one day I'm gonna have a museum. I used to say that and I used to really dream of this. So the idea that I'm associated with it is really, again, God kind of manifesting and dropping a seed in my spirit years ago, and me staying faithful. So that's kind of spooky and mystical stuff, but I really do see the work at the museum as ministry, is a divine calling, because I think that hip hop as a tool can be used to save the community.
It has been, and it's still being used.
Yeah. And Rocky's dope. Like, so Rocky's such a visionary, and he has such great dreams. Just, working with him for the last week or so intimately, I'm starting to see we ain't never had nothing like this ever in life, what the museum is about to do. Never. There's some great close things, but wow, so.
Well, it's funny because my history of Rocky was when he was at the Gaucho gym in the Bronx, and I used to coach basketball, and I used to coach teams at the Rucker. Said G from Ultramagnetic MC, DJ Alamo, Sadat X. Like, I coached like kind of like a celebrity team without it being a celebrity team, because we were just friends. And I did the very first celebrity basketball game at the Gaucho gym. Big L with the performer, R.I.P. to Big L.
Rest in peace.
The album.
Can't wait for the new record coming out soon.
So like I said, and I actually did the first, and I know this is supposed to be about you, but I just want to throw this because of the connection.
With people.
But I did the very first celebrity basketball game at Rucker as well, before celebrities started coming down on a regular basis. Even though I didn't do the first celebrity game, because I found out that the first Rucker game were actually Greg Marius, God bless the dead. The name of the group was they were on Profile Records. It'll come to me, but they used to play against each other, rappers, and then Rucker got started out of that. I found that out through Greg, because I also took score at Rucker. I was involved with Rucker so much. But like I said, the Rocky connection was because he was at the Gaucho gym, and I used to always see him up there. And of course, me being part of Video Music Box at the time, and like him having the record labels and being cool with Ralph, like I've always
Strong City, yeah.
I was in Strong City, and Rocky was never one to be missed, because he's about 7'8". So it's like he has a presence regardless. But he's always been cool. So I do appreciate what he's doing, and I will be just maybe not as excited, but I will be excited when it actually does open and it gets the recognition that it deserves. And even going to the event, I was gonna say gala, even going to the event was such a big thing, and I saw the pride in him as I'm walking by, and just how everybody was just. Because like I wrote something for Black Enterprise, and the way I worded it was like, it felt like it wasn't bougie. It wasn't, even though it was like kind of like high end as far as like everything.
Black tie. It was black tie.
Yeah, black tie event.
It just wasn't stuffy.
People were like it wasn't stuffy at all, at least from my perspective, because of course I knew probably half the people there anyway, particularly the artists. So I did appreciate just being in that atmosphere. And I'm saying to myself, yeah, that museum is going to be the best shit that happened to hip hop outside of me being in MC Lyte's video.
Now, Donna Davis, who's our chief our chief development officer, she's the producer of the gala. She came up with so many ideas, and she worked with another sister named Crystal to make sure that everything was great. So they're amazing. Getting back to the basketball, do you remember this cat from back in the day named Apache? Rest in peace. He used to be a coach.
Apache at Rucker?
Like just around that era, like not necessarily at the Rucker, but he was a real big.
Maybe by face, or maybe just because I'm old, I can't remember right now.
Yeah, he transitioned, but I remember when I used to come up to New York in the 90s, like 95, 96, he was somebody, and he really got into he really was somebody who was getting into coaching, but also bringing hip hop to motivating the kids to come out to their practice. And it's interesting, going back to just the God thing. I remember calling him, and he was like, "God bless you," when I answered the phone. And I was like, "Huh?" He's like, "I just say that because isn't that a nice thing to say to somebody the first time you hear that voice?" And I've done that ever since. Like, that's one of the reasons why when someone calls, I'm always like, "God bless you," because I remember, again, ministry is when people just drop stuff in you, and that was something that was dropped on my spirit. So shout out to him and wherever he is.
Let me take it back a little bit further, because you mentioned that guy. He's an actor now, William Smith or something like that.
Willard Smith.
Oh, yeah, that's right, Willard. How did you get into hip hop? And it's funny because I grew up in the Bronx, so hip hop was always around me. So I'm like, it's like I couldn't avoid it. It was baseball and hip hop in the Bronx. You couldn't avoid it. But before Fresh Prince came out, because I remember when that came out and the buzz that was right away, outside of Schoolie D, because of course Schoolie D, looking at my Gucci, yes, I'm that old school. Philly wasn't like just that one record, even though Pop Art did make a bit of noise.
So you got your timing, like your calendar. And maybe that's because you're from the Bronx. I'm actually from West Philly, right?
Okay, yeah. So
my mother grew up in Hilltop. Like, I went to the same school with my mother. Like, so I grew up with the Hilltop Hustlers, right? So let's say that's
wait, before you say that, let the people know who may not know who the Hilltop Hustlers, because of course I'm old, so I know, but just to let
so in Philly, Philadelphia is divided into sections of neighborhoods, right? And so Hilltop is a neighborhood for people in West Philly who traditionally go to Overbrook. Overbrook is up on a hill, so it's a hilltop, right? And so Will Smith was living in Winfield, which is right over the bridge, and the Hilltop Hustlers were on Redfield Street, right? And the Hilltop Hustlers were put out by Lawrence Goodman. Yeah. Will Smith was put out by Lawrence Goodman's brother, Dana Goodman. And we're talking Girls of the World is Nothing But Trouble. Parents Just Don't Understand. That kind of, before he got under Rush management, right? And that's when he kind of separated from Dana. Lawrence Goodman put out a record label called Pop Art, because at a certain time in hip hop culture, specifically, I guess the mid 80s, labels were not signing rappers. It was very few, there might be some independent thing. So he decided to put out Pop Art, and the artists that came out of them, shout out to Salt and Pepper, just, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They were called the Showstoppers. Yeah. And they had a diss to Rick and Dougie Fresh. Also the Juice Crew, Shantae. So when you hear Roxanne Shantae and Roxanne Revenge, was just and I had got a call from Pop Art. He said, "Yo, baby, that joint is fresh." That's Lawrence Goodman, LG. So me growing up, and I'm talking 11, 12, 13, I grew up in the same neighborhood. I went to elementary school and only elementary school with some of them, the Hilltop Hustlers, walking down the street, seeing them. Like I said, I went to church. Will Smith was there. Will didn't really come to church that much, but the twins, his brothers and sisters was there. His older sister back in the 70s was best friends with my older sister, and his grandmother, Helen, who speaks about at length in his book, was one of my mentors, right? And his mom was very cool. When I first moved to LA, I saw his mom at like the Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, and she was like, "Nikki, what are you doing here?" And I was like, "Ah," and I was, happy to see somebody from Philly there. When you look at Philadelphia hip hop, while a lot of people go straight to Schoolie D, as you should, the founder of the godfather of gangster rap, if
Don't
you will.
That was just because there's been a discussion about that, but
they can say what they want to say. Your man Ice-T said it, and looking at Magucci is about that. Schoolie D. We gonna stand on that. If y'all gonna stand on August the 11th, we gonna stand on Schoolie D. How about that? Because there's arguments about flowers too, right?
Fair enough.
But we also have people like MC Breeze, discombobulated booba. Like there's always this level, a lot of hip hop in Philly. The biggest stars were Schoolie, Hilltop Hustlers, who eventually put out 3 Times Dope, though they were from a different area, and also Will Smith. And actually, Will Smith,
Steady B
is a Hilltop Hustler. Steady B and Cool C, who are incarcerated right now, but they all went to school with Will. They all were in the same homeroom classes. So there is this strong, before the Beanie Siegels and before the freeways and all of that, you had the Hilltop Hustlers if you wanted to. And if I really want to back it up, you had Lady B, who's the first female to have a hip hop recording, a record, right? So she's from West Philly also. Let us just, give us our props. West Philadelphia, born and raised.
I'm feeling stupid because when I said that before the Will Smith, I'm like, I knew all of that, and I'm like, but I'm 82, so I get it.
But it's okay because people, Philly doesn't represent our history loud enough, right? People don't realize Nas was signed to Rough House first. Yeah. The Fugees were signed to Rough House first. That's Chris Schwartz out of Philly. When you think about the samples, Juicy sampled Entume. He's from Philly. Entume is. And Entume and Mr. Gamble, Kenny Gamble, they were two of the first people to ever approve
Philadelphia, TSOP.
Right? Approve sampling, where other people were like, nah, what these hip-hoppers are doing, they're messing up the music. They saw an additional revenue stream there. In addition to Philadelphia is the birthplace of Black Music Month. So, we get our shoulders loose a little bit when we talk about the impact of Philly. And another fun fact, but you know this already, what 2 rappers were in a rap group out of Philly that are not they wind up linking with other 2 groups to kind of blow up?
Gilly the Kid. Let me stop. And you know what? I'm pretty sure I know that, and it's not coming to me right now.
Black Thought.
Oh, that's right.
Was in a rap group with Beanie Siegel when they were in the 4th grade.
Yeah, that's right.
Inside Philly. So
that's right.
So there's a rich. So coming up, my uncle was this guy named Bobby Dance, and Bobby Dance used to do the hip hop concerts in Philly, like at the Y, at the Win. I was just talking to the radio promoter. Her name is Danielle Lott, and she was like, I never got to go to the Win. And I was like, I remember I would sit in the like the lobby area, like, just please let me get in. But I was so small. Like, I'm short now. I'm 4'9" now. It was so small I couldn't even get. They were like, Nikki, you can't come into the Win. And that's where Cash Money, DJ Miz, Jazzy Jeff, all of them would spin. And I would just sit outside listening because I was too little to get in, too small to get in. So
luckily, like, hip hop was like I was like, when I first discovered hip hop, I should say discovered, when hip hop was all around me. I'm in the Bronx, and a good walking distance from Bronx River Projects, where Africa bombarded them. So of course my looking before I was able to actually participate is similar to like what you were like not being able to, and it's definitely amazing. And like people of this time or even the past 20 years can't have those stories because hip hop was already developed to a point where it was at a commercial level. And when we were involved, it wasn't commercial. It was there, but it wasn't like, because of course, Fresh Prince was the first one to get a rap Grammy.
Really?
So,
Yeah.
So it's like we was at the cusp of it. And I just, like I said, even when I have conversations about things back then, and I can't believe that, like I said, I'm hitting myself. I can't believe that I didn't really acknowledge Philadelphia like that, because as you're talking, I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot because.
And we were the only ones that had radio, hip hop radio, because New York wasn't playing hip hop on the radio except for like Mr. Magic's Mix or something really late at night or whatever. But hip hop, Lady B opened it up so that you can listen to, rap throughout the day. And then there was Mimi. So we were the first ones. So Chuck D and all of them always talk about coming down to Philly so that they can get on the radio and do interviews and stuff like that. I think about back in the day when I first heard PSK. It was a great song, but it terrified me because Parkside Killers were really they were a real gang, and they beat up kids. Like I remember they circled my sister's junior high school. The adults did. So this might just be my kid, and how I recall it as a kid. But I remember the parents had to go up to get the kids from school because the gang had circled to school. And so PSK is making it. In my mind, I was like, yeah, those it really was them, and we need to make sure that we don't ever go close to them because So there was the PSK, there's Hilltop. Hilltop is actually a gang, well, a collection, I guess. Then you have the Moon Gang, then you have 56th Street. So it was all of these pockets, and once the crack era kind of was introduced, everything just got a little bit more vicious and a little more dangerous. So when I listen to Schoolie D, while now I can, this is the jam. There was a time in junior high school when I would listen to his music and just be like, I hope they're not in this. I hope they're not in the jam. I hope they're not here because they're going to start something up, which I liken to when people listen to Pop Smoke's Enter the Woo, and they played in parties and there might be woos or chews there, right? The gang's there. So it kind of is like the same. They might, I know people think that the gang culture in hip hop, the Bloods, is relatively new and was introduced by like Snoop and them, but
those particular gangs, because I can tell you for a fact, and I know some of my older friends would always get mad at me whenever I would mention Zulu Nation being a gang, and it's it's like, listen, I can tell you from my experience and my dealings, because they had chapters, and the Black Space turned into Zulu Nation. So I'm like, it was basically the same thing, because a lot of Zulu was definitely involved because of Africa Bambaataa, and before Q-Tip and all of them started like claiming them in the Bronx. If you hear the Zulus were around, you either step back or you went home because you didn't want to be involved with Zulu in that way, especially if you have beef with somebody or they have beef with you. I was never involved in any type of gang life ever in my life. So it's like, but I did see things, and I would tell people that, like you said, people would think that like the Bloods and Crips might be because of Snoop in them, but gangs in general, no. Even back when I was in high school, like they had the Ball Busters, they had so many
Violators, Decepticons. Like,
so it's like,
wait a minute, I'm about to blow your mind.
Yeah, so I'm like,
I was initiated into the Zulu Nation in the Atlanta chapter, through the Atlanta chapter, when I was in college.
See, so you a gang member? Let me stop.
I'm actually and what's interesting is that while you can consider my sorority a gang, right? It's a collection of people. The rules and the people always go against the rules and the bylaws, but the rules and the bylaws are really peaceful. And I remember my first time coming up from Atlanta to the New York's anniversary, Zulu anniversary, and shout out to the Zulu Nation. This is their anniversary right now. This is our 51st anniversary this weekend. So I remember coming to the show, and my eyes was like, what? And it was totally different than what I understood. But now I also understand, as an older person that lives in New York, there's a different mindset in each borough. There's a different mindset about codes of honor and traditions. And once I moved to New York, I was able to understand more what I was looking at. Where at once I was like, that's not, what you mean the Zulu queens can't say nothing? I understood that things ran differently. Shout out to the Zulus.
Shout out to Zulus. I mean, like I said, I came up with a bunch. And like, I was even they try to recruit. Mama does not allow me to be a part of anything unless it's the church. So, yeah. But even during that time, because like I said, even mentioning the 5%ers and just whatever collectives, I'll call them collectives as opposed to gangs, whatever collectives, there was always some type of unity, even if some violence came along with it. But I also liken it to hip hop because, as you just stated, when it came to the boroughs, as small as New York City is big.
Yeah.
To the hip hop, I'm from the Bronx, so our mindset, and even though Harlem is like you trip and you're in Harlem, the mindset was different. Brooklyn has so many sections in Brooklyn where it was too confusing, and then you go to Queens, and then Staten Island, no disrespect, didn't really get into the picture until Wu-Tang. And
shout out to the Force and D's.
No. Listen what I'm saying. No. I'm talking about as far as the culture back then. And like I said, because I always tell people that Force MC's hip hop group, before they became an R&B group, they were the ones that brought Staten Island into existence to us. But what I'm talking about is in correlation to Staten Island was definitely an island where there's only one bridge or the ferry. In the boroughs, you can go around. I mean, if you see what was that gang movie from the 70s? Warriors. So you can move around New York like that, but not Staten Island. So that's what I mean when I say not Staten Island in that sense, because whatever was happening in Staten Island, we never knew or cared about because you had to physically go into Staten Island in order to have to deal with it. And like I said, I'm from the Bronx. I go to Harlem, it's a different scene. I go to Brooklyn, it's a different scene. But it's all like, we can all get there. So that's what I mean as far as a different mindset. But then it came into hip hop because that's when you had the Rakim fans and the Kane fans and everybody pitting simply because, not because it's hip hop, because they had their own style of hip hop. Even though Kane and Rakim were 5%ers, their approach was so different because one's from Brooklyn. Well, actually, Staten Island, I should say. Staten Island, and one's from Brooklyn. So it's like
Long Island.
That's what. Why is that? I meant to say Long Island and Brooklyn.
Just so y'all know, I am a hip hop historian.
Of course,
I love God and I love me some hip hop. So,
but I say all that to say that even to this day, even though hip hop isn't what it used to be, what I enjoyed about hip hop is that it was so much variety. Even within the Bronx itself, you can have Nice and Smooth, KRS-One. You have people that have so many different styles, and we're still claiming the Bronx. And we're going to go up against, even though we all different, we're going to go up against Queens all day long. You have Run DMC, then you had LL, and it's like, that's what I love about it. Yeah. That's what I loved about hip-hop because, Poor Righteous Teachers, Big Daddy Kane, like everywhere you went, it was different, but it's like also they would beef within each other because of areas, but come together when it comes to going against boroughs. And I just wish that hip hop still had that mindset when it comes to the creativity behind. And we're older, so we're always going to be, we used to do this, we used to do that. That's natural. Every generation goes through that, whether it's jazz, whether it's R&B, whatever. But the one thing that any other genre, in my opinion, they always kept whatever the basics were, even if they changed it. And hip hop rules changed. Like last week was something different than it is tomorrow. So, which is good, but it's bad at the same time because it's like the authenticity.
Well, that's why that's why I love battle rap, right? That's why I love battle rap because there's such diversity in styles and creativity. Now it's compromised because once you do the rhyme, you're not supposed to do the rhyme ever again. So people are reciting battles from whenever, but I love the creativity in battle rap and the excitement in being different, right? When I look at commercial hip hop, there is diversity. The problem is it's saturated.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's like a kid who understands technology can excel faster than a kid who understands the art, who cares about the art, because all they're doing is formulating, algorithms, how to get this, how to get that, how to go viral, and doing case studies on what young people, what's trending. Like, it's just weird in how people formulate their ideas for music and the hits, right? While I can't, I'm not a big fan of NBA YoungBoy. I can respect how he approached his craft and how he said, okay, I'm not dealing with the industry at all. I can make money being by myself and doing this, and he's the hottest thing. I look at what's his name? Chopper and NLE Chopper.
NLE Chopper.
NLE Chopper. Because he's figured out a way to make money using social media and all of that stuff. There is an arresting in his ability to learn and hear things from other people. And that's young people across the board. But it seemed like back in the day, we listened. Like, it seemed like the artists cared about what the older artists thought, like there was some honor there. So I'm looking, I think that there's so much diversity out there. So many great artists out there, but we miss it because there's so much stuff that's not so great.
You just like jarred my head a little because I didn't even think about this, but great time to bring this up. AI. I tell people, like, I always remind people, and it's funny because AI always comes up in my conversation because something, and especially with the latest
Nikki. The girl, Charlie. The shark girl. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've always, the way I approach AI is I try to remind people about the Terminator. I'm like, we're there already. We're there already where we might not have the control we think we have. But I also see that everyone is rushing to accept. Now, I have to admit, 19 Keys. I spoke to him, I think about 3-4 years ago, and he's like, we have to stay on top of AI. And he tried to convince me, I'm not going to say try to convince me, but try to convince that we as Black people, because of where it's going. I disagreed only because I keep seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger coming after us, or an iRobot. But I think in a way where and everybody that isn't, anybody over 30 is disappointed in Timbaland because he was one of the innovators as far as hip hop producers. And maybe because he hasn't had any real hits when he had a string of hits, maybe that's why he embraced, whatever reason. I'm not going to take anything away from the reason why he embraced it. But in my opinion, the way he embraced it and tried to throw it at us was all wrong. And that's the reason why he got that, the feedback he got. And then to find out that another producer's beat was actually stolen using the same thing that he's promoting. And then hearing almost a year later that, the AI artist with the woman, and Gayle King just had a
she said, but you can't sing.
That was the funniest. That's as a matter of fact, that may have been the funniest thing I've heard the whole year. She's like, but you can't sing. And it deflated. You can see it in her face. It deflated. I can't remember. All
right, so my answer to that is Roger from Zapp couldn't sing either. Right? And he created an aesthetic with a voice box, which is an artificial tool to enhance the vocal. Right?
Let me count it. I don't mean to interrupt you, but there's a reason why. Because no, you'll understand why. Because people think that T-Pain was the one that came out with auto-tune. I'm like, no, Roger.
And Stevie Wonder even before then. But go ahead.
Yeah, but the thing is, T-Pain is he has a beautiful voice. It hurt me when I heard his real voice. I'm like, money, you have a better voice than literally 90% of the
Right,
people.
but we're talking about right. So this is the thing.
So I'm agreeing with you. That's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing with you in the terminology.
The tool, we've been using AI.
Yeah.
When you're doing spell check, that's a form of AI.
GPS
is a form of AI. While I do feel uncomfortable with the creation of this, I'm uncomfortable that the market receives this over that, and that we don't have a discerning market that can say, I want to hear real singing over something that's been artificially generated, right? My issue is with the fans. The technology is the technology, and we have to learn it. Otherwise, we're going to be lost and left alone. The appetite for the fan has to be more developed and more refined. So I'm more concerned. It's not the artist's job to develop the appetite. It is parents. It's the community. Like, I have to tell my daughter, she want to. We're not listening to that. We listening to this, so she knows the difference. When I'm not against people use AI for a lot of different ways. I think it's funny sometimes when I see an R&B version of, a rap song or whatever. It's cute. I take issue when you're using someone's voice without permission. That's the issue for me. The issues for me are all those copyright type of issues. Fans gonna like what they like. I think it's also an opportunity for artists to get more creative, and because there's a reason why her is a big star, not because she's the best singer. She just was the most organic singer at the time. Yeah. There was no one like her out there right now. Sam Smith, there was nobody really like him out there. So if you come out, Coco Jones, it was a lack of like singers out. And so they take the one and they'll blow. But we grew up in a time where everybody had to grow up in the church. And like, I remember looking at Mary J. Blige like, it's cool, but she ain't singing. Like,
you can't riff, you can't sing.
Like, it's all right. She's not no Melissa Morgan. Like, she's all right. Where's the Shaka Khan in it? Like, she's flat. Like, But again, music is also not just about pure talent and the vocals and all of that. It is about the feeling that you can promote with your gift. And so there's a lot of people that can't. Sade's not a great singer, but I put on a Sade and it's a vibe, and she speaks to my heart. You know what I'm saying? They can talk anything they want to say about Keith Sweat. Keith Sweat turns out a show, and his songs be on people's mixtapes because they're great songs. So anything to embrace the experience. My consumption of hip hop now is about what is the experience going to invoke in me. Right? And so I can't get upset if someone uses AI for something else if the artists who are real artists aren't doing the real artist thing. Kwame came out and said, boom, I'm about to kill you. Boom. Great album. Slick Rick came out. Boom. Real artistry. Like, even the clips. Keep rocking Common. It lives. But are we busy complaining back here, or are we going out and actually purchasing the records? Are we downloading? So the reason why these AI people seem like they flying and they moving and they doing things that we're not, because we're not doing the work to support real artistry. So again, it goes back on the fans.
Yeah, but my only real beef, if I do have beef, because I think that as humans, we need to utilize what we have to make the best of what we do. So I don't have a problem with actually using AI. My only beef is when everything is done in that sense where there's no human element to it. And that's what I'm scared of, because
the program of it is the human element. And when we deny it, when we deny that we've actually programmed this, and we give more power to the computer. So how do we wrestle and we actually control
let me let me put a spin to that, because I'm also thinking about as far as writing as well, because I've been advised I don't use AI for anything except, like I said, GPS or whatever. Like, it's like somebody suggested to me, it's like when you're doing your podcast, you can go to Chat GPT, tell them what it's about, and they can write up what. And I'm like, but I can do that, and it's like, why am I taking a step away that I can actually do now? If there's somebody that can't do something and it's used as a tool to help what they're doing, I have no issue with that. My
And
issue,
also to cut time on things. People use AI or Chat GBT to cut down on time.
I meant as far as, because I've heard some filmmakers say that they have an idea that Chat GPT might be able to help them develop more than they can get back to it. I'm with all of that because it's basically pushing you to be better creatively. What I'm saying is the people that just use it just to use it and then use the you have attorneys who are being busted now and being disbarred for using their opening statements or closing statements or Chat GPT. So it's like, you mean to tell me that you have lawyers that's going to school for how many years, getting paid so much, and all they got to do is go online and say, okay, do it for me. They don't even look at it, don't even proofread, take it to court, and then submit it. It's like, and that's the reason why I think, who was it? Was it some artist? Oh no, the Fuji guy.
Prize.
He went back to court and said that, and his lawyer admitted that his closing summary was Chat GPT. So now he's fighting that because he's like, that's probably why he lost, because there was no human element to him. I'm just saying, listen, when you lose, you always find ways to figure out how you can't lose. So, but the thing is, he has a great argument if that's the case, because the lawyer did admit that he used Chat GPT. And if he used Chat GPT to bring out certain points and then rewrote it, I'd be like, okay.
It's not the use of it that's problematic. It is the lack of checking, right?
That's exactly, yeah.
Again, it goes back to people. It's not the technology that's the problem. It's how people are not. Because let's say he did the and I don't believe it's. I'm not on the AI. I'm not on that, right? But let's say he printed out the statement, right? The opening statement, right? He should have went back in and said, okay, having enough knowledge about the thing and gone in to craft it, to change it around. But when people don't do, it's the laziness. And again,
that's
it's a culture.
That's exactly. I agree.
It's not the technology, it's the people. Again, it's the artists are not creative enough. It is not the technology. Like I said, technology has been around forever. I remember my grandmother was saying that cell phones are going to be the death of people. Now everybody got a cell phone and can't live without it. And it's not the death of people. It actually helps out so much. Like if you're stranded somewhere, I remember the days when I didn't have a dime and couldn't use the payphone, right? So the goal of technology is to support and help us. The issue is that as a community, as a culture, specifically millennials and Gen Zs and the alphas, and also COVID really exploded things because we're trapped in our houses. We can't go out. It is the lack of integrity that goes into lived spaces, and art's supposed to be about lived spaces, right? And the inspiration from a lived situation. And so,
yep, I agree. But I just have to throw that out because, like I said, I didn't even have that on my list. But as we were talking, I was like, because everything has to do with modern technology, and that's a big thing now. And people are like, you need to embrace it. It's like, it's not that I'm not embracing it. It's just that until I have a need for it specifically, like I said, it could probably help my writing. It could probably help with how I do the podcast.
I think the embracing is a very girthy word, like idea, right? I think that we need to master it. Whether you use it or not, you need to know it, because they're going to come and take our art from us because we don't have. This goes back to my conversation about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This is something I can say publicly, that when I looked at the the Joe Crocker tribute, and I looked at all of those white folk singing soul music, and I think they might have been British or whatever, but they was deep. They was in it, growling and everything. And I was like, wow, Joe Crocker was inspired by Ray Charles and so many other black singers, Billy Preston, whatever. There was not one black artist that could be up there to represent that legacy. And all I saw was that the real music, the real soulful music, we weren't there. And soul music is ours. And I looked at that and said, wow, it's theirs. They love the blues more than we do. They love, like, they're preserving that culture more than, so we give things away because the technology, that's whack. We creative people, we're so creative, we give it away and allow other people to come in and take over with technology the things that we create. And so that's my argument about AI. We got to be involved with it. We got to not just embrace it, but master it so that other people can't take our motion and reclaim it. History is changing, and if we don't stake our claim for history, it won't be ours. Rock and roll is black, country music's black, but the average person won't think that way.
Yeah. So I mean, every music form, rock, hip hop, jazz, yeah. But let me. I'm gonna switch it to this because I want to make sure that we talk about this because it's something that you're doing. Health. I can't even read my own damn handwriting. Health, Hope, and Hip Hop Foundation. So let's talk about that, your role and the role of the organization. So that way, at least we can cover that because I don't want to miss that.
Sure. So I'm a journalist. I feel like I am a stakeholder in hip hop culture, which is why I work with the museum. But also, I am a multiple myeloma survivor. I was diagnosed with blood cancer about 3 years ago, and I've been going through chemo. I'm actually 164 days away from my bone marrow transplant, where I lost all my hair, and I'm getting better. I shout out to you, Said. Shout out to Chanel. Shout out to Grouchy Greg and Chuck Creekmore. So many people have been like championing me and having my back throughout this journey. Grouchy Greg, who is is the founder and one of the owners of All Hip Hop, calls me up at the top of the year, and he's like, I know somebody I grew up with who's a part of the Delaware hip hop scene that has the same cancer that you have. And I'm like, great, let's connect. Because I'm always looking like, I believe that I have the disease because God wants me to be a voice piece to my community about health and wellness, right? And so I meet this guy, and he's doing his gala. His name is Oya Gilbert, and he was.
You said gala. You said gala.
Right, gala. And so he's doing this hip hop ball, right? And I go talk to my doctor about it. He's like, oh, I know one of the guys who's the sponsors. He's the chief medical officer for the International Myeloma Foundation. So it's like all of these connections. I meet the guy, and he's like, can you help me with the artist? And I book Slick Rick for them, right, to come and perform. While I'm at the actual gala at the event, I could just look and see, oh, they're using hip hop as a tool to remind and inspire Black and brown people to go get tested. Simple. We die from diseases because we don't go to the doctors. And Black and brown people have all kinds of reasons why we don't. The suspicion with the medical industry, doctors, hospitals, goes back to, the Tuskegee experiment. It goes back to gynecology is how, was developed from using enslaved Black women. And, there's so many ways that space, Henrietta Lacks, how they stole her cells. Like, so many things that the wicked medical system has done, but a staying away ends our life. I was a part of Brick TV. Brick is a local station here in New York.
Yeah.
And we did, during 2023, we did this thing called Dead Rappers Get Better Promotion. and it looked at who was on the panel? Styles P was on the panel. Bob Celeste, and a lawyer for many artists that have transitioned, died from different things. Just a bunch of different people on this. Someone from Keith from Men's Health. Bunch of people on there to talk about how do we get artists to come out, or people to come out and get tested. And we did this is like graphic of all of the rappers who died since the 80s to now because of health challenges. And it was over 30, over 40, right? And so many recently: cancer, diabetes, heart failure, whether we're looking at Heavy D, whether we're looking at Fat Man Scoop, rest in peace, who wonderful, Clark Kent. I think about Guru from Gangstar. He died of multiple myeloma, the same disease that I have. The difference is that they found it too late. And so our goal, I'm listening to them, and the goal, I'm like, wow, this is, y'all messages, y'all not getting y'all message out fast enough, right? He's busy working with, the drug companies to get them to have some sort of, presence in the communities to fund this type of work. I'm like, also, we just need to get our type of work out there. So I said I will work with them. I became their chief communications officer, and we're building a strategy up for 2026, where we will go into the community, do balls, do block parties, do panels, do PSAs with artists. There's a podcast connected for Oya to talk to Black men about Black health. And the goal is that no curable disease is left mystified for the community. That we offer tools and resources to people in the Black and brown community, specifically in the hip hop space, to who love hip hop, who enjoy rap music, who enjoy breaking and all the things that go under hip hop's umbrella, and remind them that their health is just as great as the lyricism that they listen to in the songs. And so I love it. It's given me purpose, and it's exciting to see how people respond to just our outreach.
That's great. And because we're older, and most of the people I speak to, health always comes up, because it's sad that there's always somebody that's passing away, but we're also at the age where it's more common, but it shouldn't be, because when we were younger, 70, 80 was the times when people would die from these diseases. Now it's 40, even 30, 40, 50. And it's like, I'm going to congratulate myself, because I had my colonoscopy. I'm 57. I had my first one at the age of 57, when my doctor's been telling me to get it since I was 12. Okay, not 12, but but I'm going on this, contacting all of my friends, family, and they're like, we did ours already. I'm on my second one. And I'm like, wow, I'm feeling like a fool, but I'm also feeling glad that people are actually doing it, because I think that we need to tell each other. We need to definitely push, because I hate when a Fat Man Scoop dies, or when any of our contemporaries in the scene die, and everybody for a week go on this, we got to take better care of ourselves, and then go to the Chinese restaurant the very next day to, and I remember when Irv Gotti died, when his brother said, after a while, he said, he died eating Chinese food while playing poker, knowing that he's in the condition that he's in. And it's like, we are our own worst enemies when it comes to that, and Black men specifically. And that's why I said I got to take responsibility, just because, one, I'm right at the age where anything can happen, and yeah. I'm being realistic. But I don't have any children, but I have nieces and nephews that I have to be an example for, as well as like I said, other family members. So I definitely make sure that I have that conversation, just because if we don't have that conversation, we're going to lose each other, and then people be like, oh, well, he found out too late. I mean, so it's like, we can't be finding out too late when we can find out now.
The Fat Man Scoop death impacted me a lot. So we always cross people, but I never had a relationship, like a friendship with Scoop until my 50th birthday was coming up. And Chanel got him to send me a birthday wish. And in the birthday wish, he was like, yo, you gonna beat the C note, Nikki. Just eat your vegetables. Just do this. Just do this. Just do this. Just do this. And I remember after he sent me that, I saw him out. I'm like, I'm the Nikki. And he's like, all right, take my number. And all through me starting chemo, all through, me being nervous and stuff, he would like send me notes like, Warrior, you got this. And so I think about how we often care about other people, and we drop the ball with ourselves. At the same time, again, the minister's hat is on. My friend was able to meet he transitioned while he was doing what he loved most in life, right? So that's the only kind of like solace I take in any of this, is that he died doing what he loved. But I know that just if we just went to the doctor's problem, here's the next problem. The doctor's office is not a great experience oftentimes. A lot of times you're waiting for no reason, a long time. A lot of times you go back there and they not on it. Like, they take a long time. Sometimes the doctor's experience can be, whether it's in a hospital or private practice, can be frustrating. Definitely. And busy people got things to do. Like, why would I just, but you got to do it. You got to do it. So I feel like, and this is why we work with the drug people and we work with the hospitals and medical professionals, create the environment where people will want to come and not feel judged. And of course, the insurance thing is crazy. A lot of people can't go and get tested because they can't afford to. They're not poor enough to get Obama, the public assistance. And, if they go get the Affordable Care Act, it's like $2,000 a month for insurance, for quality insurance. So there's so many other levels barriers that people encounter when they're trying to take care of themselves. So at Health, Hope, and Hip Hop, we're really trying to unpack and develop ways and partner with people who have the same desire to get this Black and Brown community healthier, but also provide easier access to healthcare.
That's a good thing.
That's a big thing. It sounds like it's not a lot, but it's a big thing, especially with the political climate that we have now, where Black and brown bodies are not valued. And why it's also great, going back to what the responsibility of artists, what are you saying to the people? How are you sparking the mindset of a person to do stuff? And there are great artists out there. There are strong, but we get so inundated with the riffraff. And you know this because you and I are sometimes at the same listening parties. I'm like, what? Like, huh? This is what y'all putting y'all money behind? Like, what? Oh, they got 10 million followers on Instagram. And so, so again, it's a lot of parts. You could look at the labels and be like, what are you doing? What are you doing to develop artists? Or are you just going online and see who's popping on TikTok? Where's the raucous? Where's the empires? Who's trying to create something new?
And it's funny because I still have a couple things, but I'm not going to take up too much of your time. But that is an issue at labels where it's like you could be the worst person to ever put a mic to your in your hand, but you got 10 million followers, so you go get a deal. But you can have the silkiest voice, the smoothest lyrics, but you may have 4,000 followers. You may have just started your social media journey, and they're like, "Get away, little boy! You're bothering me." But the guy that is grabbing his crotch and just doing the nastiest things, but got 10 million followers, like, how did we get here?
We took our eye off the prize. Stakeholders, responsible stakeholders, grew up, and when we grew up, we didn't reinvest. It really is deeper than this, right? So when you look at millennials in particular, right, people born in the 80s and the 90s, right, what was the social phenomenon going on in urban communities?
In the 70s and 80s, or
The
for
80s
people?
and the 90s, the 80s and the 90s, where millennials were born.
Well, the crack era.
And right. And so most of their a lot of people's parents were either crack addicts or influenced by, you know, in a community like where there was just so many crack babies, and crack babies had babies. So you have this a whole generation of adults that just were missing out of the community to kind of give back. We're teenagers. We're young people growing up in this, right? So we're trying to raise these babies, these kids, right? But we don't have the tools really, right? And so when you look at millennials and you look at Gen Zs, it is a group of people who were either crack babies or who didn't have the nurturing of a community like we had before crack devastated our community, which I believe is very specific. I think that the way that you kill a movement is by destroying the leaders. And so they did it in the 60s and the 70s with heroin and infiltrating the Black Panther movement and some other movements. And when they saw hip hop being dangerous, they allowed it. And we know that we know that that's a fact, that crack was dropped in our communities by the government. We know that. Now, granted, we got free will. Everybody needs to smoke up. You don't need to free base. Oh, I can free base and I ain't going to get addicted or what. But the generations that we see been at the forefront of allowing AI, allowing any kind of whatever, it's them. Even when you look at my daughter is 26. So she's a Gen Z, is Gen Z Alpha. Those kids, not really the mumble rappers as much, and they're mumble rappers because remember, their understanding of things is not extensive. But my daughter's generation, it's a lot of depression rap. It's a lot of depression rap. There's a lot of rap about how unless you're rich, you can't get out of certain things. And so when you listen to what the art is, it should tell you what's going on in the culture, in the community. And when I look at young people, you know, this is how we got here. The young people who weren't developed, who weren't raised, we were trying to raise ourselves. We couldn't raise other people's kids. That millennial generation, the Gen Z, who are our kids, they met and they didn't have a vested interest in trying to save the world through hip hop. They trying to get a dollar through hip hop. So it's not a fully fleshed out idea, but those are markers that we have to look at. I'm sure that generation that allowed this embracing AI this way, that embraced mumble rap this way, embraced drill music this way. Drill is funny to me because real gang activity, like back in the 80s, it ain't the same now. Like, I know it's tough and you might get sliced in your face or something like that, but back in the day, it was hard. It was hard to get around. It was hard, like carrying your, like, I remember talking to Havoc and he was like, I would be on a train and I would put my bag down so nobody would just take my bag. Like, it was a really tough time. We were coming out of that, and all of a sudden we just got smashed back down. So,
well, I think I'm going to not end it on that note, but because like I said, we could be here for the next 3 hours and still not get to certain things. But sick of talking to you. I mean, I know you got things to do.
Yo, Willie. And I know this was a very heavy session. Like, I hope I didn't bore everybody because it's a wordy and everything. We ain't talking about fun stuff like what songs are better than the others, or
yeah, but you know what, with the people that do give me feedback, they appreciate the realness of the conversation, because like you can admit that none of this was planned. It's just a matter of I have bullet points of things I want to talk about, and 90% of the time, if I have 15 things listed, we'll only talk about 4 because there are things that are mentioned that are worthy to be discussed. So that's the reason why I enjoyed the way it happens, because you know, I don't do it for the fun aspects. I don't do it for the serious aspects. I just do it because I want people to recognize who I'm talking to, and then they're going to form their own opinions based on what you're saying. And if what you're saying is making sense, then hopefully they become a fan of you, and job is complete. Job is done, because I have had people that have contacted others based on them being on the program. Right. So and that's what it's about. Because like I said, if it was about getting the most views or trying to get there's so many artists that I can just contact that I'm like, let me just run the numbers up. But I'm like, no, because I have to enjoy it as well. And I want people to really, like I said, people who contact me, it's like, yo, I like what this person said because I didn't look at it from that aspect. And like I said, that's what I'm accomplishing when I do it. And I do appreciate when people do give me feedback when like they get contacted, which is what I'm about to ask, like, how can people contact you? But when they get contacted, I've had people who had books and it's like they got sales because of the conversation and not because we were promoting the book, but just happened to mention it. And that's the purpose of me doing this because, you know, I need to do something because let me stop. I enjoy this too.
This is the thing, right? So one of the great things, like I said, when I first moved to New York in 97 and I was able to meet you, right? Your reputation
that's the greatest thing that ever happened to you. You're right.
You're right. But I've been able, like, I watch people, right? And I watch how people treat people, right? And one of the great things about you is that you honor people, whether they are top of the food chain or if they're not at the top of the food chain. I don't know where they might land. You treat, what I have always thought was great about you is that there's a consistency in how you treat people and you truly care. You care about the culture. You care about the industry cosign. Like, I've read your stuff where you're checking, like, this is whack, you know? And people like you should be applauded. People like you should be saluted, you know, because you're out here showing people that the industry isn't just a bunch of riffraff. And if there's anything that we walk away from this, my experience with hip hop has been nothing but lovely, whether it's the industry or just the culture. My Zulu Nation brothers, when I'm out, when I tell you they look out for me, I don't want nothing. And we ain't causing no rah-rah. We talking about music. We talking about hip hop. We're unpacking it with serious conversations like academicians are doing with jazz music, right? Yeah. When I look at like industry people, industry contacts, some of the people that I met, like Sugar Dice. I met Sugar Dice when I was 14. And I carry a picture with me of the first day I met him. And he's like, Nikki, I got that picture already. Let's get a new picture, you know. Or Kwame. I remember when Kwame first came out and I tried to battle him in Philly when he came to visit. Or because Charlie Mack would do the celebrity basketball games. And I'm been an influence meeting these people back then. And even when I remember when I was diagnosed with cancer, the first month or so. The way people, artists, executives, friends called me to check on me, even through hip hop, Minister Farrakhan actually sent me bean soup through some of the fruit. Like, he was like, just going to help you. Like, the way that people have embraced me feels like church. Tie this all the way up. It feels like church and community to me. So if I can have a presence where I can minister to people, I can help create systems where people can learn how to preserve hip hop culture and really feel invested in a space for us to preserve hip hop culture, the way that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the way that, you know, the jazz space, all the other places, they have their own institutions. If I could be a part of that, I want to be a part of that. And lastly, if I can help inspire somebody to at least get tested. I believe that you can save a life through spirit, save a life through culture, save a life through health. And I think that encapsulates who I think I am November 9th, 2025 versus who I might have been before. That really is my goal. Sure, I love a good battle rap. Sure, I love a great concert. Sure. But at the end of the day, I want it to be family and feel like family used to feel. Yeah. And I use my life, the work that I do, the ministry that I have to kind of push people into a space where they feel responsible for keeping our culture, responsible for recording our culture, responsible for healing our culture. So.
That's why I felt so in place at the Hip Hop Museum event. Because as you stated, like even some people that night, it's like you'll say, you've always been how you are now, and I can appreciate that. And for me, hearing that from somebody that I haven't seen in 10, 12 years. Or I remember I saw Father MC. He's like, yo, sad this, and like, and I don't mean to name drop, but it's just a matter of, like I said, when we came in the game.
Name drop, because you that dude. Like you everyone knows you.
But this is
everyone.
This is what I tell people. There was a time where we actually cared about each other, not care about who or where you were in your life. Like I saw Christopher Williams. He gave me love. Like I hadn't seen him in years. So it's like seeing people and then seeing them how they embrace you. And I do enjoy when I do see people that I haven't seen in years, because there's a reason, and everyone's doing their thing. People make millions. People been around the world, and then they see me, yo, sad, and I'm like, wow, I love that, because I see the industry. I see how people treat other people. I see how people just look at people like, eh. And then when I'm embraced, I get happy, because it's like, and that's another reason why I'm doing this. My friends are better than yours, because I want people to see that, you can actually do good for yourself and others and still be embraced. And you don't have to, I don't have to have 3 million followers in order to make other people feel good. Because if you come across my life and you've made me feel a certain way, I want to express that and let other people see that you can be that way for this person as well. And like I said, I don't want to go on this whole soliloquy, but it does give me reflections when I do see people or when I go to events. And I love old school events. I love events where every time I see Dougie Fresh, like I said, yeah, I'm gonna name names. Like even when Fat Joe saw me, yo, big, yo, say this, and it's like everyone's trying to get to these people, but if I'm walking by and they see me, they're like, yo, sad, and I'm like, I love that.
Here's a great example of that. At the gala.
At the event,
the youngsters came.
Yeah, I heard they were there.
And so I remember Fat Joe.
For people that don't know, another Philly act.
They're actually two of the boys from Young Men. They're men now. The two of the Young Men are sons of Lawrence Goodman, the guy who I was telling you put out Salt and Pepper and all of them back in the day. So they're at the event, and they were nervous because they haven't been out in a long time. And I was like, nah, go on a blue carpet. Go into this. Make sure you meet. And I'm looking at their wrap up, and I see how Fat Joe embraced them. I was just talking about you. They thought I was capping. They always say da-da-da-da. And I saw how the validation was and how that made them feel important to me. Same way as when I see Doug and Rick together.
Yeah.
Or if we, those old school places where nobody will ever, it wasn't a social media back then. If you weren't there, you missed it. You don't know what it feels like. I saw Jamil Spencer, people know him from Bad Boy. I remember from Twizzle. He worked with Shaq when Shaq had a record label. And he was you know what I'm saying? And we were all young for the first time, getting a little bit of money, hanging out, going to How Can I Be Down in Miami, like doing all the things and there was a bond. It was like, I see Johnny Nunez and OG. When I see him, we can sit on the side and be like, oh, I'm tired. And we old together. We're growing old together. And that's the great thing about
it. We're still involved. That's the important thing. We're still involved. Yeah. That's what I enjoy. Because like you said with Jamil, I worked with Jamil at his first industry job at the Streets with Chris Latimer. And I remember Johnny Nunez when he first started, when he was pitching things when I was working at Blaze Magazine at Vibe. And like I said, when it's always good to see people and their.
Shout out to Chris Latimer. We're not going to just say his name and just.
Oh, yeah, Chris, yeah.
People don't know. Remember the clothes. African American college.
The college. And I when he was doing that, I worked with him for that. Me and Jamil. But yeah,
Shaka Zulu, who is Ludicrous's manager. We were in college together, and he helped me. He was at Morehouse. He was at Clark while I was at Spelman, and he helped me with my papers, like my first paper as a freshman. He's like, "No, I'm gonna help you," and that's Tupac's cousin. And it's like, it's all when I moved to LA, like because it was the same time that Pac moved to LA from Atlanta, and we had just gotten out of jail, and it was like, what you doing here? We were all kids growing up, loving the culture. Now, as adults, I still can see somebody and smile. Somebody can say something about Layla Turkin, and I'm like, yeah, that's my sis. I know she crazy. That's my sis, and don't say nothing about her. Like Tim Beeson Shock. I remember Tim Beeson was at Gavin before she became the Tim Beeson Shaka, the creative director extraordinaire, writing for commercials and working with Beyonce and all of the things. I remember Kedar. I remember Don Muhammad. I remember Haq Islam, and these people who were Mark Pitts.
I went to high school with Mark Pitts.
You went to high school with Mark Pitts?
Well, let me rephrase that. He went to school with me.
How about this? I went to high school with Troy Carter. You know who Troy Carter is?
Isn't he? Yeah, I know Troy Carter is.
Yeah, back it was little Troy and little Nikki. And I remember, because it was on internet, I remember he was interning with Bad Boy. And he got me a Bad Boy jacket, the black Bad Boy jacket. And I was walking around. I remember Naeem Ali, who's now the vice president of A&R for Epic, I think, over at Sony somewhere. But this is when he was just doing publicity for Rowdy, and he was doing the Jamal video from Illegal.
Yeah, Illegal.
And me and my girlfriends pulled up with the Bad Boy jackets on in a Jeep, and we told people we were Total, and because they had never seen Total, they believed us.
Wait, isn't Illegal from Philadelphia too?
One of them is little. Or even at Left Face. Like I remember, like I was so proud that Outkast was inducted yesterday. I remember being in college and as an intern for Sherry Hughley, who's now Sherry Riley. One of my jobs was to make sure that the boys went to school the next day. Like the job, and I remember various times calling Andre, and Andre being a young person growing into what this is. Him being like, I'm gonna have 1,000 wives. I remember that phase. I remember the next phase was I called him Collect because there was no cell phones at the time. I called him Collect, and he was dating an R&B singer, right? And she was like, why she call you Collect? And I was like, oops, my bad. I thought you so hang up. And then I remember he talked to me about another R&B singer he was dating, and what to do, about the serious relationship that was so intense back in the 90s. And so to see that these are like the lifelines that we have. My husband, I met my husband. He was a DJ for Mad Lion and them. On my train ride down to Atlanta at the conference, it was the Gavin conference in Atlanta. Karis One didn't fly, so he was on the train with me. And so him and Simone was talking about this great guy that they want me to meet, that they think we would be perfect together. I meet Greg with Shadow from Nervous Records, and next thing you know, we're dating and we're hanging out. And Simone's like, this is the guy, you met him. Karis One told me to marry my husband. like hip hop is it is a family. And we're losing that because there's so much, animosity. There's always been rivalries, but there's always been family. So,
but I also think that people aren't genuine to each other anymore in that sense where we were when we first came in the game. Like I said, I was blessed to even go to school with like Slick Rick, Dana Dane, MC Search, Changing Faces.
Oh, you was at Art and Design?
Music and Art.
Music and Art?
Music and Art and then LaGuardia.
Okay.
So
but I thought they was at Art and Design.
No, Changing Faces?
No, Slick Rick and
No, Music and Art.
Okay.
Bokeem Woodbine, Marlon Wayans, Jennifer Aniston, Miss Jones.
Oh, LaGuardia.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Music and Art was one high school, and Performing Arts was one high school under the same banner. Then we came together to form LaGuardia.
Okay.
And if they came together, like when I was a sophomore, because I had spent 2 years in Music and Art and 2 years at LaGuardia. And so many people that come, Mark Pitts, like I said, Mark Pitts went there. I mean, if I was to have a reunion of the people that I met in high school, I might have to do two parties. I used to hang out with Carl Payne, Don J. Whitfield, So there's so many people, and like I said, so my genuine friendship started back in high school before any of us chased our dreams. And the fact that I can still speak to most of them, because I still have direct contact is a beautiful thing. And
it's a testament of relationship and character.
Exactly.
If you were a cornball and a snake and a dirty dude, they would look at your calls and never call you back.
Or I wouldn't have their numbers. So but like I said, that's one of the things, because like even when I reach out to people, it's just a matter of like I have to be in the mindset to reach out to people, because I'm lazy 90% of the time. And when I say lazy, not lazy that I don't want to do anything, lazy in how I do it. I mean, even like I said, even when I was contacting you, it was like, oh, I think I saw you posted on Facebook. Oh, you know what? Let me contact her now, because next Thursday I'm just not gonna, So I'm like that, and like people, like I'll just hit people like in the middle of nowhere, or I'll be here 2:00 in the morning just going over emails, and I say, oh, you know what? Blah 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 blah, bang, But I'm lucky and happy that I do have the type of relationship where I can just directly hit people up. And or I see them out and about, like, yeah, we got to do this. And there's so many people that's already committed to doing it. But I'm like, I'm not even rushing it, because I don't plan on stopping it anytime soon. And
I'm honored. When you sent me the email, I was like, me?
And people, I don't understand. But you know what's funny? I kind of don't understand, but I understand when I do reach out, they're like, oh my God, like, why me? And it's like, why not you? But I understand the humbleness of
like, why me? It's like, I definitely was like, why me? There's so many other people that,
No, I get that. But I tell people it's not a matter of what the world thinks about the people placed in front. It's how I feel. I'm reaching out to you not because you like, I'm just finding out about your new role at the Hip Hop Museum. Now, if I contact you after finding that out, that's kind of different. But if I'm contacting you just because oh shit, you know what, blah blah blah, let me hit up. And coincidentally, you're like, oh, because we're supposed to do this like 7 times already. I take responsibility.
Yeah. So that's the other thing, is that this literally is brand new, something that just happened over the last week or so.
No, that's what I'm saying. So that's why I said that. So it's like, and I always tell people things happen for a reason. Because when I was talking to Drez before his documentary came out, I just called him up like, yo, I want you on my, let's do it. Then as we're talking, he's like, yeah. And then, I got a documentary. This. I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't know about that. He said, oh yeah, this is that and the other. So it felt good that, it was already in the works and it was already had a date, but I didn't know that. I just contacted him because Drez is my friend.
Yeah.
When I spoke to Chia Lee, he has a nonprofit organization. He said, oh, we just did this. I'm like, oh shit. He's like, yeah. So I'm like, well, maybe when I do contact people, and even because I contacted you, like I said, about 3 years ago, well, not that long ago, but I would say that almost every time I contacted somebody to do it, like Special Ed, it took a year. Like Smith & Wesson, it took a couple of months. I don't expect it to be immediate, but I put the idea out there. And like I said, however it happens, it's usually good timing. When I spoke to Smith & Wesson, they had just came off tour. And they was about to release their latest album. So I'm about to speak to actually Do It All, who was one of my first guests.
Shout out to Do It All.
He just wrote a children's book.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to be my first repeat guest. So it's like, and just knowing people
who actually made history.
Oh yeah,
as the first artist to assume a major political role, be elected for a major political role.
Well, in the United States, because Shine just being
in the United States.
Yeah,
United
States. We had the discussion on my podcast. So it's like I said, and it's like I just like I said, I just enjoy doing it, catching up.
Wait, explain to me Shine's role.
Well, he's not in that role because he just lost the election.
When he was there,
he was the opposition leader. In other countries, they have the two parties. Like they might have the Republicans and Democrats and this, that, and other, but no one cares if you're not in charge. So it's like whatever. But like in Belize, like he was basically the top person. Like when I went to Jamaica last year, we met with the opposition leader, and they rushed in mad security, and he's not even in charge, but he's the opposition leader. So I just know he was the opposition leader, but he also rose in the ranks, because his father was a politician.
I knew that. I knew that his father was a politician.
Yeah, so it's like, and I've done stories on him and I've written about him, but like right now I can't remember. Like he's been elected like 2 or 3 different times, but the last time he got voted, I mean, he had 2 other opponents, and he lost. So that's why he's going back on tour now, and he's
Lyte is just so funny. There are just things in my head that I just can't even articulate right now. Like, because if you were there, if the first time I heard Shine, I remember I was like, so it was great to see that he transitioned and became what he became. All right, I know that I keep talking, even though you're trying to get off.
Oh no! I have no problem. No, I was like I said, we could go on for hours, but it's just funny that and like I said, I said it was gonna end like maybe like 30 minutes ago, but we haven't. But it's always like that. So I'm like, I always try to be respectful of other people's time as opposed to it being about me. Because if it's about me, I'm be like, you know what, I'm out. You know, even though I joke around and when I'm like, I'm sick of talking to you. But no, I'm like, no, I'm enjoying the conversation. I just don't want to be Joe Budden and drink champs and have a 7-hour conversation, and people only look at 20 minutes of it. No disrespect to any of them. I respect what they do, but you know, I'm not built to be, you know, and plus there's always like 90 of them at one time, so maybe that's the reason why it has to be that long. So I just can't. There's only 2 podcasts that I look at that I can watch a whole episode. It is what it is with Cam and Mace, and now Fat Joe and Jada.
I love Fat Joe and Jada. I love Fat Joe. We used to book when I worked for Russell Simmons at Rush Communications and worked on the Def Poetry Jam and so many other initiatives that Russell had in between 2000 and 2005, let's say. But when I worked for him, Fat Joe was our Santa Claus.
Wow.
We would always book Fat Joe as a Santa Claus, and he loved it, and the kids loved him, and you know.
I know Joe was going to be a star because you know we came up in the same area.
Did he rob you?
Nah, I wasn't part of the 30 kids in the lunchroom, you know, because I'm a little bit older than him. But you know, I was part of Video Music Box, so you know, Fat Joe was on Video Music Box. So when I was doing my celebrity games, I used to average like a game a month. Joe would always beg me to be in the game because you know he loved Video Music Box. But Joe wasn't really a good player, but he had the energy. I always started him because I knew the crowd would be so into him and just get him out the game. Be like, all right, you got your time. Yo, Seth, I'm trying to, because I'm not one of those, like when I was doing my celebrity games, I'm not one of those that's amazed by who's playing. No, I want to win. I'm trying to win every game. And we had some real Sadat X, Alamo, Donja Whitfield, Flex, the comedian, like Diggable Butterfly from
Ishmael.
Ishmael. I had people who actually could play ball, so we had competitive games, and I loved it.
Wait, Ish can play ball?
Yeah, he was one of my best players.
I'm gonna text him. I'm like, yo, I didn't know you was a ball player.
Yeah, tell him because it was like just Joe was like just incredible in the way he interacted with people, and he would have, even when like I had Jason, when I had other people, like most of the people were drawn to Joe because he had that aura and that personality. And even though these other guys have bigger hits or have done more, some of them could be standoffish. Some of them could be like, I hate Brian McKnight. I don't know him personally, but we did a celebrity basketball game. A little girl came up to him and asked him for his autograph. He said, I don't sign autographs. The look on that girl's eye had me wanting to punch him in his face. The only reason why I did it was because I couldn't make a spectacle at my own event. It was a Video Music Box event, and I'm like, I can't. But I'm looking at him like, I would never say anything to this man.
Well, you know, I mean, you're not a nice person, so.
Yeah, you know, like I said, but then it made sense after I hear stories about him over the years. I said it made sense because this was like maybe 15, 20 years ago. But I remember like there's very, very few people that I remember based on the fact that they were mean to people. I'm like, be mean to each other. But don't. She was a little girl. She may have been no older than 8 years old.
Who do you say?
Oh my gosh.
Who would you say?
I still want to punch him in his face. Sorry.
For a lot of reasons. Who would you say is the nicest artist that you ever met? Ludicrous. He's a Virgo.
It's so funny because we had at Def Jam, had a meeting. I was the first interview for the day. I try to either be the first or the last because, in between, it could be a 2-3 hour wait depending on how it goes. So I'm like, they gave me a chance, they gave me a slot, so I'll take the first. Bless you. I got there and he's eating, and he's like, "Yo, you want some?" And I'm like, "No, that's your food." No, you can have it. He's like the term Southern hospitality was definitely fit him to a T, and he was so cool even during the interview. Later that night, because New York, there's parties every night, especially during that time. Now I already knew Shaka because, like I said, knowing Pooh I know because people don't know that Shaka
Jeff
and
Dixon
Pooh are cousins with Jeff Dixon.
Yeah.
So I used to roll.
Yo, I'm in this. In this. You ain't the only industry cosign. I'm in this.
I went to high school. I went to college with Alamo and Sadat X. So when Brand Nubian came out, we were all around. It was all same circle, so we became friends, and that's when he started playing in my games. So Jeff was at the office, said what's up, this, and the other, and there was a party, and I forgot what the party was. What I typically do, because I hate seeing writers have interviews with celebrities and then try to be their friends. I'm like, my work is done. If you don't recognize me, I don't care because I probably have more friends than you. That's always been my attitude. So what ends up happening is that walking through the club, like I knew he was there, but I'm not paying attention because I'm like, and people laugh at me when I used to say this back then. I'm like, I'm a celebrity. And I say that in the sense of not for people to recognize, but because of that way I don't get caught up in trying to be other people's friends. No, you need to be my friend. I don't need to be your friend. He walked up to me. He's like, "Yo, you're not going to speak?" And I'm like, "Oh," he's like, "We just spoke." I said, No, it's not that. I said, "I'm pretty sure I was your first interview and you had millions of interviews during the day and this and that, and you're in New York." He's like, nah, you were real cool and this, so I can remember this, that. And I'm like, I can appreciate that. And I've always been a fan of his since then because just the fact that he did that when he didn't have to, I'm like, wow. So when you ask me the question, Ludicrous always comes to mind because like he was the most professional artist I've ever. I mean, and I've met many others.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I was working at Impact. I had a phoner with Jermaine Dupri. He was hot. He was definitely hot. So I called the time I was supposed to call. I think I had his direct number. Sometimes they'll give you a direct number. So then I think he didn't respond, and then an assistant called me back and was like, "Oh, well, he's busy, this, that, and the other." I was like, "Yeah, but we're supposed to call at this time." He said, "Oh, but this, that," and I'm like, he said, "Well, can he call you back?" I said, "Sure." And I think he said he'd call back within the hour. So I'm sitting at my desk because, like I said, I'm up at Impact, and it was like 3 hours later. I'm mad because I'm like, you know what? I could have done other shit. He called back, whatever time it was. And I was like, we can't do the interview. He sounded so shocked. He said, "What do you mean?" I was like, "We're supposed to do this at 12. It's 3 o'clock. I was like, if you can't respect my time, I'm not going to respect yours. He apologized, but I'm pretty sure I couldn't see his face, but it sounded like he was on the phone like, this nigga. And I literally hung up right after that. And his people contacted me who's like he was wondering why you hung up. I'm like, because I have other shit to do. If y'all make the arrangements to have me on the phone, respect my time. Now, if things come up, I get it. But he said he'll call back within an hour. It's 3 hours later. I got shit to do.
And no return. And it's not like it is now where you can text somebody. It takes a long time. You have to be at a stationary location.
There was no cell phones back then. We may have had beepers, but that doesn't work.
Two-ways was great. I used to get on so many two-way threads and get people phone numbers for no reason. Like I would, like it would be like the good morning. Russell used to send out good morning every day. Mm-hmm. God is love, and we would all get it. Like, oh my God, to grow up in this era was.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I remember posting something on Facebook. 5 things. 4 things are true, 1 thing's a lie, right? And everybody was like, "Oh, I think this thing is." No one could really guess which one was a lie. The lie was actually about Jermaine. I had said Jermaine paid for my tuition 1 semester. That was a lie.
Of course,
that was a lie.
And of course, no shade to Jermaine, but I think I gained his respect, but he probably doesn't give a fuck or even cared after that.
I love JD. I love JD, but I love his dad, and I love Demet Guidry, and I love.
I was just want to say, like, I interviewed his father for Black Enterprise, and we had such the greatest conversation. And I'm gonna tell you what's funny. I literally just emailed Demet because I have so many emails that sometimes I got to look back because I usually delete. I sent Demet an email over 3 years ago inviting him to come on the show. And he said, yes, let's do it. And I never got back to him. So I emailed him like, I know I'm kind of late on the response. I don't even know if I get so many emails, so he may have responded already. But when you mentioned his father, I was like, yo, and I love Demet.
Michael Maldron, Demet Guidry. Who else was a part of that crew? The guy, Key Influence. His name is escaping me right now. Key Influence. Light skin brother. Name begins with a J. His name begins with a J.
No, I worked with him on that. James Andrews. I gotta give him. You know what? I'm glad you brought him up. I have to give him credit. If partly because of him, I did the Industry Cosign because I was doing. When he did the Key Influence and then he did the Cube, he did a newsletter after maybe 2 years after that, and I contributed to the Key Influencer, but I was actually part of the Cube. So he kept my interest in wanting to continue to write, but he also pissed me off because I was always popular. So he had said at one point in time, and no one, he might deny it if he was confronted with this, at least in public. Every time, people would shoot to my section first. I was maybe he had maybe 5 sections. I may have been number 3. Every newsletter, when people would respond to my section or what I would write about, every newsletter after I'm seeing I'm going further down, and it got to the point where I'm like, you know how with newsletters, after the first 2 paragraphs, you don't care about the rest. So I'm like, yo, he's pushing me back. I'm like, you know what? I left. And within 2 months, I joined the crusade, which was the precursor to the Industry Cosign. Uh-huh. So I give James props for definitely keeping my interest in wanting to do this. Because I wasn't a writer. I never took journalism. I didn't want to write. But when I started writing it, then he brought me on, and I sort of all the attention I was getting and people having love for me. And another thing, people, because back then, feeding you news, you were the man. So instead of feeding news to James, they would feed it to me because I had a real relationship, like some of the relationships. And I started being cool with publicists. Now, and like I said, and I won't have any problem. In fact, I would love to have James on. I would have no problem repeating what I'm saying now. But James was kind of an asshole to people. People knew that. So instead of going to him, if they wanted to get news, they would come to me if they knew me. So I think that combined with more people reaching out to me, pissed him off where, I'm like, I get it. This is your shit. You brought me on and I appreciate it. But at the same time, I'm like, well, then fuck you because now you brought me on for a reason. And now that reason is working, but now you feel it's working against you because nobody's giving you the attention. It's it's not about that. Let's work together. But like I said, if it wasn't for him, I don't know if I'll still be doing this because I wasn't doing that. He invited me to come on and I was there. But if you're watching, James, what's good?
I also, when I think about executives from back in the day, of course, it's Deanna Williams, Shanti Das from my LaFace days as an intern in college. Jeff Burrows.
Yeah.
When I tell you, Jeff was so fly. I remember being a junior in college, senior, maybe my senior year, junior year, senior year, and Jeff would come down from Arista to work with LaFace and work with the rowdy thing, and he'd be walking around all smooth and cool, and I was like, he is the best. I just thought that he was smart. He was handsome, successful, everything that I wanted to be as an executive, he was, right? I would say the same thing about Brett Wright also.
It's so funny. I just reached out to him like 3 weeks ago. So we're, I
We
sent
put
him
all
the
the
link.
good stuff out into the universe, right?
So
All the
funny because
great people.
Brett, right? B
Yep.
Rizzy.
Yep. Rhonda Cowan, Terry Haskins. Like there are so many people.
I spoke to Wendell. I already spoke
Hmm?
to Wendell, Terry's brother. I spoke to Wendell Haskin during the summer before his golf thing.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah,
You know that Byron Kirkland is actually doing a golfing thing also.
that's so funny. I saw Byron at the Hip Hop Museum thing. We talked right before that. He's like, "Yo, I want to do. I'll do the podcast." Then I saw him. I just saw him recently, and I'm like, "Yo," he's like, "You said, take down my number. Take down my number." I'm like, "Okay." I said, "Cause I emailed you." He's like, "Take down my number." Actually, I got to get back to him because he did give me his number and I haven't reached out. But that's a good thing. Cause like I said, I know that when I run into people, like I'll initiate it, but then I'll forget myself, and then I'll
Because
see
you're
them
a
from oh,
celebrity.
my bad,
Because you're a celebrity also.
Huh?
You're a celebrity also.
I mean, yeah. No, let me stop.
I mean, I think about like Russell and Lyor. Like some people used to be afraid of Lyor. When I tell you, when I see Lyor walk in, this huge grin, because in my mind, I know people think things about Lyor, but in my mind, I know how devoted he is to Russell as a friend, right? And so that always warmed me just to see him looking out for his guy like that. Big Jeff. It's so many people in the industry. I mean, you from the Bronx, so that's all. I love that I could text Sha Rock and ask a question from back in the day and start crying because I know that the work that she did opened up the doors for all women in hip hop, not just MCs. And I'm that person. Like I can hear the hip hop story. Like Missy Elliott when she was talking yesterday about Salt and Pepper's influence, tears. When I spoke to Salt a couple of weeks ago and told her about how important it was for her to exist as an artist, tears. Dougie Fresh, we're born the same day or the day he's born the day before me. When I see Doug, we just look at each other. When my mother died, Doug was like, "Come here," and just hugged me. Like it's a family. It really is not just. And if this culture, I don't know what young people do, but if they can get back to what we had,
It'd
we'll
be
be
great.
okay.
My Dougie Fresh, when Dougie Fresh, my girlfriend at the time and Doug's girlfriend at the time were sisters. So that's how I literally got cool with Doug. And then of course I was in his Cut That Zero video.
Cut
And
that zero. Get with this. Okay.
let me ask you this question because since you're a writer as well, when you're writing stories about some of our friends, like sometimes I'm conflicted. Like, okay, I came up with Puff. So once all that news came out, I'm conflicted because I came up with Puff. But I also know that when people do write about him, they're gonna make it either a little salacious or go to the worst. So when I do write about it, when I'm assigned stories, I just write straight to the point. So even if I'm pretty sure he's read. I mean, his team has contacted me plenty of times. They have me on. I get regular emails from whenever there's something that wasn't or misquoted or whatever. I'm getting an email from his team, so I'm pretty sure that he knows or whatever. But are you ever conflicted when you do write about people that you know about but know?
I won't write about Lauryn. I won't write about Lauryn unless it's a positive story. I won't write about Will Smith and Jada unless it's a positive story. Too many stories about the entanglement or the slap or all the things. And I did, and I his sister unfollowed me on Facebook when she read the story about, and it wasn't. It was about the family. It was a family story, and I think I mentioned what Will said about his dad in the article, right? That it was some tough times with, but I felt like perhaps she looked at me as someone that grew up with them that I should have had. But they don't understand that you're assigned stuff. And then once I hand it over, what an editor will put in there, I don't have any control over it. So I just said, okay, no more Will Smith, no more Jada Pinkett, no stuff about Russell, no stuff about even the Diddy stuff, I did write about Diddy, but not a lot, and I kind of kept it like this. Yeah, I had so many mixed feelings about the charges, his conviction, his behavior, his addiction. Right? Once I heard the addiction, once I started getting pieces about the addiction, a lot of this stuff just got a lot murkier for me, because addicts are addicts, and they do, like when Slick Rick James was on crack, he was burning people with the pipe and with the hammers and stuff, right? So that's not the regular person. Like, you're on drugs, you do all kinds of things. Not to excuse anything.
Yeah.
Now, so I tried to, and it's so interesting because I think now at my editors at Atlanta Black Star, they'll be like, "Who don't you know?" Or they'll be like, "We can't get this to Nikki because Nikki's gonna." Or then I find right now at 52, I know that there is a need for something controversial for it to click, right?
Yeah.
I just don't feel like being a nasty person tearing down people all the time. So it'll be like, oh, I'll write an article about Serena Williams, and they want to talk about her makeup, and I'll say something about the makeup, but then I'll say something, like, I'll always try to add the positive thing in it to kind of balance it out.
Yeah, I mean, and the good thing is that sometimes when I'm assigned stories that mention people or that's about people I know, I can't, like, Doug has written stuff for me for Black Enterprise because I'm like, yo, I need this, switch, this, and other. When I think it was when Howie T died, they assigned me the story. I contacted Pete Rock, DJ Wiz, DJ Scratch. So it's like that's also an advantage that I have where I can definitely make it more personal, not to me, but to whoever I'm writing about. When they did something, when Red Alert had a statue, like instead of writing what someone else wrote, I'm like, you're Red, I need this quote. He's like, okay, blah 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 blah. So I like the fact that I have access, and there's sometimes where, according to the deadline or when it needs to be put up, somebody will get back to me 2 days later. And I'm like even like Special Ed gave me a quote for the Howie T story, and that was big because then I seen that 5-6 other publications took my Special Ed quote from my article. So it's like I do appreciate that I do have those relationships where I can do that. And like I said, there were times when I have to write. Like I just wrote the story with Busta Rhymes, like, because he got sued. But it wasn't a bad story. But I'm like, sometimes like I always want to. And if I was given the leeway I always had at Black Enterprise that I had before, I could turn it into a story that's exclusive to Black Enterprise. I don't have that freedom anymore.
So I've had 2 experiences that relatively scarred me because of my relationships with people I'm writing the stories. When Pop Smoke died, I was writing for the Griot at the time, and I found out quick, but it was still, his mom didn't know. So I was like, look, we're going to write this. I'm going to write it about, because everybody wants the gang story. I was like, he grew up in the same church that I was in, that I got ordained in. So I went to school as a kid. As a kid, I was in school with Will Smith. As an adult, with Pop Smoke, right? So hip hop and faith always interest. So when it came down to writing the article, and I put some personal pictures in that I had of him as a kid, and my slant was, it wasn't just about, he was more than just the rapper.
Yeah.
He had a life, and he was this and he was that, because so many people were saying he was bringing this energy to himself, right? I wanted to humanize him. Well, the mom got upset. The mom thought, or people around the mom thought, that I was clout chasing, and that I was trying to come up off of her dead son's like death. And I was like, if you Google me, I got easily 6,000 articles up someplace, right? For years, dating back. I'm not trying to blow up off of this, but that was one experience that made me be like, The other one was, I remember when Talib Kweli was being bullied. Well, they were saying that Talib was bullying a girl named something Moody, right? And the whole story was about she had made a comment about how rappers don't have black wives, and somebody said, well, Kweli's wife is black, and they was like, yeah, the girl says she's light skinned, and so Kweli was like, does that not make her black? Like, that disqualifies her from being Black. And so they start going back and forth. If you know Kweli, a back and forth can get crazy.
Yeah,
Really quickly,
he does
right?
not back down at all.
But the girl also used this as an opportunity to kind of propel her platform and her profile. She had a publicist. They were reaching out to people. So when they came to me, I was like, oh, I know Kweli. I can get a quote from him and we can get a quote from her. Right? I looked at what they were saying, the pitch. I was like, something doesn't seem right here. And Kweli, when I spoke to him, he had a whole Google Drive of all the screenshots and the things. And what it shows is that some of the ADOS people were working with this, co-signing her. So any attack on him, they were attacking. It got bad. It was like they were even threatening his mom and all kinds of things. So I do the interview and I hand it over to someone at the Griot to take the two interviews and create a story. Because I was like, that might be a conflict of interest, right? For me.
Yeah.
And sure enough, the girl was like, Nikki's is his friend, and had the people attacking me online. Like thousands, so bad that people from college was like, are you okay? And I actually lost my job with the Griot because what the people would do is that while they was like, Talib hates Black women, they would tag me and tag them over and over and over and over again. So they was like, we can't be connected to this. And so they let me go. And I was like, wow, like this is crazy. Shout out to Kweli because he stepped in and was like, they wrote an apology to Kweli, but Kweli wound up hiring me for the next 2 months because I lost income because of standing up for him. And so again, go back to friends. And I remember Russell was like, I can call Byron right now. And I was like, no, my time is over. If they couldn't protect me, which is why I love Atlanta Black Star. I remember there was something that was said, and there was a little dust up from the ADOS people again about this. And the owners of Atlanta Black Star was like, no, you don't got to change what you wrote. You stand on it and we stand behind you. In fact, let's put money behind it and promote the story more. And I was like, wow, I'm in a place where they really rock with me and I can rock with them. So
yeah, I have a little Kweli story because he told me 15, 20 years ago that he has a videotape of me. I used to always go up to the TVT offices. Was
Raucous?
it TVT?
Raucous?
No, it was before Raucous. I think TVT recordings.
TVT or TNT?
TVT.
Okay, TVT. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I used to always go up there. I forgot who I knew up there. And he said, and this came out of the blue one day. Like we was at a party. He said, yo, I got a videotape of you snapping on so-and-so and so-and-so. I'm looking at him like, what are you talking about? And then it starts to come out. He's like, you used to be up at the office. And I'm like, you were at the office? He said, yeah, I used to always be up there. I was like, and you had a videotape of me? And he said, yeah. And I was like, yo, I never knew that. He still hasn't shown me the tape. As a matter of fact, next time I speak to him, I'm going to ask him about it because it threw me off because I just wasn't expecting it. And he's like, yeah, he said, I've known you that long. And I'm like, I had no clue.
Like Kweli is dope. Like I when I was going into my bone marrow transplant, the week I was going in, I was out in Ohio at a battle rap event. And he was like, oh, you out here? He's like, change your flight. Come where they were. And okay, pivot. I go hang out. And they give me him and Dave Chappelle and the rest of them, they give me the IV drip to nutrients to make me so I can have a good experience and feel calm and supported before I go into my and my surgery. And I feel like tons of people at the core of it want me to live. That's it. We want you alive. And the outpouring of saying, Nikki, are you okay? Nikki, are you eating? Nikki, do you need some money? Nikki, do you from artists that you would like? People look at Mobb Deep. Havoc is like one of my biggest champions, right? At his listening party, when he saw me, he just like started hugging me. We started crying in the middle of the floor, like, because hip hop is relational, is family. And so again, so when I say that this is my church, and when I minister and I preach in actual churches and stuff, it's always from a social location that people who think that they were excluded from the Christ story feel included. And that's because I can see God in these people who have been othered because they're in hip hop. Artists are always othered. Some of them are the biggest. They walk like Jesus did. Like they care about the things that Jesus did. And so my goal with the Sunday School Dropout is to listen to people's stories and have them tell me how they've been introduced to God and how they see God in their life, and then maybe guide them instead of just always preaching at people. And so.
Impressive.
Okay.
Definitely good thing. But is there anything else that you'd like to discuss or bring up that that the audience may have an interest in?
No, I'm good.
Or at the very least, let them know how they can contact you via social medias.
On Instagram, Nikki Duncan Smith, NIKKIDUNCAN On Facebook, because I'm old, Nicole Yvonne Duncan Smith. Because I joined Facebook
when it first came
was
out.
an experiment, like very early on. I think it was Facebook started in 2006 maybe. And I think I came on board 08, 09, something like that, early. And so I put all my names just in case somebody was looking for me. Because, I wasn't cool enough to come up with the cool nicknames and all that.
I guess so. No.
So thank you for having me on. We talked a long time about a bunch of stuff and nothing at all. So
that's the premise of this, and people get to see, and people who may not know you personally, they may know who you are, will got a chance to see you interact in a way they may never have thought you interacted, or may not have ever had the chance to view an interaction. And I think that that's important as well, because I always hate when people are like, oh, this person, he's cool. Like, you spoke to this person for 5 minutes. How do you know if he was cool for those 5 minutes? He can be the biggest asshole in the world, and you talking about he's cool. No, he's not cool. He was cool for those 5 minutes. So
that is the thing. That is the thank you for that. It is the knowing that I'm like, I got a call yesterday from one of my sorority sisters, and they was like, yo, I was listening to WDAS, and somebody shouted you out saying that you were a hip hop icon. I was like, who, me? They was like, yeah. And this probably was Bugsy because I was texting earlier. But it's the fact that he would even put it out in the ethos. And that there are people, and she was like, I didn't even know. And I said, there are people who really don't know who I am and what I do or what I care about. And so I don't present, I think I don't present myself as intimidating, but perhaps I am. And people don't know. So you're right.
It is what it is.
All right.
But I'm going to end it now because I am.
Yeah, we got.
I'm just hungry.
And what is 2 hours? Wait, we've been on here for 1,000 hours.
I looked at the time. I'm like, yo, 2 hours. I think this might be the longest one I've done. No, wait, no, yeah, it might be.
And we talked about everything and nothing.
Yeah, and I still have things on my list. I want to talk about your sorority, and anyway. There's always there can always be a part. Oh, and what I'm gonna start doing, which I should have been doing before, is actually talking to people at events as well.
Nice, that's nice.
Yeah,
nice.
And I bought a Pocket 8. I mean, That's the Pocket 8.
I hate those little things, the little fuzzy mics. Hate them.
Well, I haven't used mine yet, but I don't have the mic.
I think they look so weird when you stick in the little fuzzy mic in people's face. Yeah. I think it's the worst thing. Like, if they don't have a lav on, then I hate the fuzzy mic.
He was like talking like this. Like, what, you can put it right here. You can, people like and yeah, but because I want to, because like I'm trying to do more video because I just need to. Yeah. I'm getting discouraged in writing, not for my site, but But that's a different story for a different time.
A different story.
Yeah,
a private story.
Yeah. But but anyway, I'm pretty sure I'll probably see you in somewhere.
Yeah. We see each other all the time.
Yeah, just
all right. Well, happy holidays, all the good stuff, and I'll talk to you soon, brother.
Thank you once again. And for all of those who stuck to the end, bless you. And as I say all the time, my friends are better than yours. And if you think I'm wrong, show me your friends, and more than likely they're already my friends, or I'm right. Until the next time, Big Said Industry Cosign, my friends are better than yours. Thank you to Reverend Nicole Duncan Smith. And till the next time, peace. I never know when it stops recording.